So there you go, as we wander off from The Gonk, which was the end theme, to Dawn of the Dead, which is our film for this week.
Rather coincidentally.
Wow, that's long. Again, almost like we planned it. So, Dawn of the Dead, directed by George A. Romero, written by George A. Romero, starring David M.G., Ken Foree, Scott Reiniger, and Galen Ross. Music by Goblin and Dario Argento for the most part, and the rest supplied by Dwarf Library Music. Right, it was released in 1978 in Italy, 1979, April the 20th in the States, and had a number of various running times, which I'm sure we'll discuss later. It was made for a budget of $650,000, and at the box office at the time, it made a gross of $55 million.
Wow.
Dawn of the Dead was shot approximately over 4 months, from late 1977 to early 1978, in Pennsylvania, cities of Pittsburgh and Monroeville. Its primary location was the Monroeville Mall. Oh, blimey, let's get on with this. See, I've gone. It's my brain. Oh. Anyway, the history of Dawn of the Dead goes back as far as 1974, when Romero was invited by friend Mark Mason of Oxford Development Company, whom Romero knew from an acquaintance in his alma mater, to visit Monroeville Mall, which Mason's company managed. After showing Romero hidden parts of the mall, during which Romero noticed the bliss of the consumers, Mason jokingly suggested that someone could actually be able to survive in this mall should an emergency ever occur. With this inspiration, Romero began to write the screenplay for the film. Romero and his producers, Richard P. Rubenstein, were unable to procure any domestic investors for the project, and by chance, word of the sequel reached Italian horror director Dario Argento, a fan of Night of the Living Dead and an earlier critical proponent for the film. Of the film. Argento was eager to help the horror classic receive a sequel. He met Romero and Rubenstein, helping to secure financing in exchange for international distribution rights. Argento invited Romero to Rome so he could have a change of scenery while writing the screenplay. The two could also then discuss plot developments. Romero was able to secure the availability of Monroeville Mall as well as additional financing through his connections to the mall's owners. Once the casting was complete, principal shooting began in Pennsylvania, November 13, 1977. Principal photography of Dawn of the Dead, Dawn of the Living Dead as it was originally known, happened in 1977, as I said, and was actually filming during Christmas shopping season, which caused numerous problems due to time constraints. Filming began nightly once the mall had closed between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when automatic music came on. And as December arrived, the production decided against having the crew remove and replace all the Christmas decorations, a task which proved too time-consuming, and the filming was shut down over the last 3 weeks of the year to avoid possible continuity difficulties and lost shooting time. Production resumed in January the 3rd, 1978, and Romero took the opportunity to begin editing the existing footage. Airfield scenes were filmed at Harold W. Brown Memorial Airfield, and a lot of this group's hideout in the mall were actually sets. They weren't in the mall at all. They were created at Romero's production company, Latent Image. The elevator shaft was located there as well, as there was no such area of the mall that actually existed. Also, the same goes for the gun mall. For the filming of that, the crew used a shop called Firearms Unlimited in East Liberty district of Pittsburgh. Oh, God, here we go. There's lots of stuff about the special effects. Tom Savini, who'd been offered the chance to provide special effects and makeup for Romero's first zombie film, Night of the Living Dead, unfortunately, before he was drafted to Vietnam, made his debut as an effects artist on Dawn of the Dead. And Savini has been known for his makeup horror effects for some time prior to Dawn of the Dead. And in his book explaining special effects techniques, Bizarro, explaining how his time in Vietnam influenced his craft. One of his assistants during the production was Joe Pilato, who played a police captain in the film, would go on to be the lead villain in Day of the Dead. There was loads of multitudes of extras using blue or grey tinged face paint. Some featured zombies, though, would get more work, such as the machete zombie, the sweater zombie, the nurse zombie. The sweater zombie, Clayton Hill, was described by one crew member as the most convincing zombie of the bunch, citing his skill to maintain a stiff pose and rolling his eyes in the back of his head, even when he was heading the wrong way down an escalator. The cast of Galen Ross's head was to be used for the original ending of the film, because there was an alternative ending where Peter would commit suicide and Fran would basically do the same, sticking her head into the rotor blades of the helicopter at the very end. Yeah, nice and cheerful. Yeah. When that was abandoned, a cast of her head was used in another scene, which some of you might have seen, depending on which version you saw, when a guy in the tenements gets a shotgun to the face and his entire head explodes. There's actually a famous headshot scene that was cut.
I think, isn't that when they? That's when the police.
When Willie goes ill. Yeah. When Willie goes ape shit. Yeah. Yes. It was it. There's obviously because of the budget constraints, and one of the many cuts that Romero did. A lot of the music came straight from DeWolf's music library. Which is also why a couple of the musical cues come straight from Monty Python. Here it is. There's a lot of music that actually features in Monty Python.
Yeah,
yeah, in the Holy Grail, isn't it? The dun 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 dun, just before they nick the car.
Yeah, it's the stealing of the trucks. I think in Holy Grail, it's Lancelot charging up to the castle.
Oh yeah. Oi! Anyway, Dawn of the Dead received a number of re-edits and recuts, mostly due to Argento's rights to edit the film for international foreign releases. Romero controlled the final cut for the film, and in addition, the film was edited further by censors or distributors in certain countries. Romero, acting as editor for the film, completed a hasty 139-minute version of the film, now known as the extended or director's cut, for the premiere at Cannes Film Festival, and later pared it down to 126 minutes for the theatrical version. And in an era before NC-17, when there was an X rating, there was another cut which was released with, which was given the taboo rating of X for its extreme graphic violence. Rejecting this rating, Romero and the producers chose to release the film unrated, so as to help the film's commercial success. Mm-hmm. I'll leave the rest, apart from to say that Argento controlled the European cut for non-English speaking countries, and some of his versions he clocked in at 119 minutes, and had a lot more music done by the Goblin, his band, not the Goblin, in case anyone mentions that. The critical reception was overall very good, unlike many other gory horror films of the time. It's still got a 94% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's Entertainment Weekly's 27th on the list of 50 cult films of all time. Roger Ebert of Chicago Sun-Times gave it 4 out of 4 stars, proclaiming it one of the best horror films ever made, while conceding that Dawn of the Dead to be a gruesome, sickening, disgusting, violent and brutal and appalling. Ebert actually said, "Nobody ever said art house had to be in good taste." Steve Bydrowski of Cinefantastique praised the film, calling it a broader version of Night of the Living Dead, and gave particular credit to the acting and themes explored. I'll leave the rest of those. And there was obviously the remake by Zack Snyder. There is a ton more wiki stuff, but, you know, if I keep on talking like this and droning on, then Darren's going to go face first into the microphone. I am going to go
face first.
I think
I'm missing a cup of tea.
I think Jim's died on the other end of the line. so we'll wrap that little section of the wiki up and maybe come back to bits as we discuss it.
Yep.
So, Jim, what did you think?
Well, this was a welcome rewatch. annual pilgrimage to the Maronville Mall. Of course, I had the tricky question of which cut did I watch?
Yes.
I went for the classic cut, as I think of it, which is Romero's unrated cut.
Yeah.
Which is, despite other cuts being labelled the director's cut, is the director's cut. I was tempted to do the Italian cut because that's the one I've seen the least, but there are substantial differences in it. I thought, well, I won't be on the same page as everybody else. So I went for the classic cut of it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it again. It's one of those strange things, Dawn of the Dead, because it's such an influential film. I mean, if you erase it from history, like I did Uwe Boll's Alien remake,
I don't even
whole
know.
swathes of cinema will vanish without it. But at the same time, what struck me on this watch is that how substantially different it is to the zombie films that came before it. Came after it, sorry. And it's because I think, despite the subject matter and the gore, Romero wasn't actually setting out to make a horror film per se. It's not a da-da-da-da-da-da-da boo sort of movie. It is more kind of, it's an exploration of a what-if scenario.
Yeah.
You know, what would happen?
Yeah.
In a world overrun with zombies. Because, I mean, I know it's said to be a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, but it kind of, on this viewing, it did sort of click with me that kind of actually, at the end of Night of the Living Dead, you have the feeling the situation's under control.
Yeah.
Whereas in Dawn of the Dead, it's kind of, it's not under control. They've dropped the ball really badly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of, in many ways, it's more like a drama in a world of zombies than a horror film per se, I think. Maybe I'm just jaded and just so used to brain eating now, it doesn't register. Oh, that's fine, that's funny.
Yeah.
maybe that's my cynicism and jadedness. But I do think it is kind of, he's more interested in exploring the what-ifs than just delivering gut-munching. And that's what makes the film special. Although I will say I have seen this film go down like a brick pigeon with people because it isn't delivering the da-da-da-da-da-da, boo!
Yeah, quite bang.
Some people expect from a horror film. Yeah, I mean, I unreservedly, love Dawn of the Dead. I mean, yes, it is dated, but, in fairness, it's kind of, it was dated when it wasn't dated when I first saw it in the Video Nasty years, but then it was hard to get hold of, and when I saw it, got hold of another copy again at the end of the 80s, it was very clearly dated. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things, because it's kind of, this is Tom Savini's debut outing. It's like he dated the film himself because, he went on to perfect his gore effect in the early 80s. And so weirdly, Dawn of the Dead, when I think about it, effects-wise, it dated very quickly indeed.
Yeah.
Because of, in those early years of the 80s, the likes of Savini, Rob Bottin, Rick Baker, they really, invented modern makeup effects as we know them between the three of them. And Savini, definitely modern gore effects.
Yeah.
But having said that, when you consider as well, it's a low-budget film, what impressed me on this viewing is the epic scale of it.
Yes, actually, that's very true.
Made for well under $1 million, which was more money back then. I mean, famously, Romero, he did have offers on the table that would have given him a budget of a couple of million, but studios wouldn't give him script approval, and so he said, fuck you all, I'll do it independent.
Nice.
To make the film he wanted. But, it's kind of, when you compare it to modern low-budget films, it's kind of, they don't have the same sense of scale Dawn of the Dead does, with trucks and helicopters and aerial shots.
Yeah.
It's an impressive bit of work, all things considered.
Yeah, because I tell you one thing that's really interesting is one of the films I watched this week, or rather I caught the end of, was the fucking appalling Skyline. But I was waiting to see Girl Who Played With Fire, which was straight after it. And that's got a budget that's much, much bigger than Dawn of the Dead. And it's got the ability to produce a bigger scope. And yet it feels really like a bottle episode of Star Trek Next Generation, except with brain-eating aliens. And it's just shit. And it's just like, what Romero produced with, and the sort of the scope, I think is partly in the mainly in the writing. Just that scope he produced, as you say, is just so well done that compared to something like fucking Skyline, which I wish I never had even seen the first time. It's just amazing how well and how deftly he pulled that off.
Absolutely. I mean, I think. Originally his idea his starting concept was that civilization would have completely gone, and the humans would have been essentially cavemen living in the mall. Which that's an interesting idea that someone could pick up. I'm glad he didn't go with that because, although he invented the flesh-eating zombie in Night of the Living Dead, it is Dawn of the Dead that creates the modern zombie movie. This is the film that launched 1,000 gut munchers.
Actually, cavemen versus zombies. There you go.
Oh God!
Yeah, there's an inkling of an idea there. Flint, sort of like axes and stuff like that.
See, just by saying that, somewhere in some universe, that film has just happened.
It's gone.
Yep.
You son of a bitch.
Yui Bowl, you're listening.
Shut up.
Don't make me use the time eraser again.
Paul W.S. Anderson.
Don't you dare evoke that person's name. Damn you. Damn your eyes.
Ridley Scott, you're listening.
Oh, well. Yeah, so watching it this time round, you watched your classic version then, Jim. And is there anything that, came springing forth that you suddenly thought, actually, blah, as opposed to, this is a great film all the way through?
It's one of those. One thing that I've got the really nice Anchor Bay Box of the Dead version that has the American unrated, the extended can cut, and the Argento cut, and they've done a lovely job with restoring the visuals. However, one thing that bugs me, it's true on all of them, is that the actual music on the soundtrack is a bit wobbly. And I only say this because I've got several Goblin albums as the music, which has been remastered from the original tapes.
Yeah,
and it's kind of I wish. And I know it's one of those. It's a Lucas-esque tinkering.
Yeah,
but in this case, I would like if they could put the remastered Goblin versions of those tracks into the film.
Well, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with putting like a clean soundtrack back on it, as opposed to something that sounds like this and then changes levels every 10 seconds. Still, I'm saying that we don't know what this thing sounds like yet. When we play it back, we could be being highly ironic. So apart from the musical score, there's nothing plot wise that kind of stands out, or is it still holding up for you?
It still pretty much holds up for me. It's one of those. Romero, he keeps the plot fairly simple and straightforward, and explores the situation. It's as I say. I've got the point with that. I don't really watch it as a horror film anymore. You know what I mean? I often get the impression, having watched lots of documentaries and heard commentaries with Romero, that he doesn't see his films quite the way movie fans and horror fans see them, because he often talks about setups and things as gags. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that comes through. That's why you got the pie fight, which some people find jarring. But I think it's kind of the way he moves from horror to humour to claustrophobia and through these sort of different tonal shifts is what's really interesting in the movie. What makes it rewatchable as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things I do have issues with it. I've always had issues. I mean, I always think the helicopter zombie.
Yeah. Who looks
like Herman Munster.
Yeah, crossed with
So
70s
he looks like
Rod.
a metal Lunan,
I was actually thinking he looked like the sort of Frankenstein's monster-style creature that was in Carry On Screaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's very
Odd
odd, Very
Yes.
odd.
Or
I mean,
was
tellingly, Argento cuts that scene out of his cut. But it's one of those. It's kind of, if we didn't have that, you wouldn't have a similar scene in Raise the Lost Ark with Bomber getting it in the propeller.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of, they overreached, but I think it's good to overreach sometimes.
The one thing I could never get out of my head when I saw that zombie is he always looked like Kenny Everett doing Rod Stewart, with the inflating arse.
Oh, yes.
But he had that same flat head and spiky hair sticking out the sides, and it always just reminded me of that. I always thought it was Rod Stewart, that zombie, but that's just me.
Rod Stewart zombie.
Rod Stewart zombie's about to get into the rotors. There you go. There's his head. His curiously flat head. Cool. Right. Well, we'll move on because we'll have a bit of chat because anyway, we'll get to me in a second. Over to you, Dal. What did you think of it watching it this time round?
I don't know what cut I was watching because I'm not an expert on the sort of like the cuts that are out there. I don't know that much detail about them.
Well, there's a good test.
Okay, well, obviously, the results of that test were, I think, basically, if this is the version that I saw when I was younger, it was a case of the fucking Emperor's New Clothing because it was far too long. I was fucking bored by the end. I really, really was bored watching it. It was just...
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? When they first get the helicopter, do they run into a bunch of policemen who threaten to take the helicopter and then they say, oh, no, we can't take the helicopter, and they have this big, long conversation?
There's this bloke who talks to him like this or something. I don't know, some real dippy twat.
Yeah.
There was that in it. Do you know what? This cut didn't even have one of my favourite lines in it.
Which is,
have you ever heard of Macumba? That's not in it.
What?
I can't remember it being in there. Because I'm sure... Where does that bit take place? Is it in the actual shopping centre?
Yeah.
I remember the line.
When they're all dressed up, up in minks.
And I've heard... Yeah, I don't remember that being in there. That line.
Okay.
Because I've heard that line before. I do like that. Have you ever heard of Macumba?
Yeah.
Voodoo. Yeah. Have you ever heard of Cluedo board game? It's they might as well have been talking about that in this one.
Well okay. Quick.
It's just it felt overly long.
I think you saw the same version I did, the director's cut.
2 fucking hours long. It was 2 fucking hours of my life I'm never getting back again.
Really?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think if this is the version that I loved before, I think I'm done with this film. I am just totally done. Yeah, I'm out. That's it. Mic drop. Walk.
Mic drop.
Yeah,
wow.
It's just kind of like, fuck me. How did I... It's like, if this is the one that I watched way back then and really enjoyed, it's like I was really kidding myself.
I don't think... See, that's the thing.
I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping I've got a really duff version of it.
Okay.
And it is 2 hours long.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't know if that makes a difference.
That will be the can cut.
Yeah.
Which that won't be the cut you saw originally, because that only surfaced in the 90s.
Yeah.
And for the record, I don't like the can cut. It is too long. And I understand why George says, no, that isn't the director's cut. That isn't it.
It doesn't say it on there. I mean, it's got a great case for the DVD, which is why I think one of the main drives of buying it. It's got that
black with the scrunchy zombie on it.
It's
the one with the big eye.
Yeah, it's the one with the it's the drawn version. It's the actual illustrated version of that zombie.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
When they're fueling up the helicopter and Peter goes into that little room and then he's attacked by the kids.
Yeah.
Do you see him shoot the kids? Or does he just pull the gun and then you just have a shot sound off camera?
No, you see him put bullets into the kids. You see him actually put 2 bullets. There's one goes in one forehead and the other one goes in the other. The kids go down for the count.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure.
Or because I was going to say, or do you just see them run at him? He throws them on the sofa, and then it just cuts to hearing. It just cuts to him.
He does
going. He throws them on the sofa,
and then you see him. And he stands there. He looks really sad about the fact that what he's about to do, and then he pulls out the gun. But yeah,
because that does sound like the director's cut.
It does. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what? There are things in it that take me right out of the action. Right. It's the badly acted parts that I really kind of had me.
Right.
It's things like the bits where there's supposed to be a bit of tension, right? You've got fucking twatty flyboy who, oh my God, I wanted to kill him myself. I just really wanted to fucking kill him myself.
Yeah, this is sounding more and more like the director's cut.
I wanted to kill her as well. I just wanted to just fucking feed them to the zombies, right? And let the 2 police blokes get away because... it's like Laura said to me, are we supposed to care about these characters? It's like, obviously not. They're just zombie fodder. But, you got... I'm sure, deep down, he is Dick Van Dyke's illegitimate love child, because if you shut your eyes when he talks, that's Dick Van Dyke.
Right.
The guy who flies the helicopter. I'm not joking. When you watch it again, right, just listen to his voice, and that's a young Dick Van Dyke talking. That's... I've seen him in things like fucking Diagnosis Murder and shit like this. You listen to him, that is Dick Van Dyke talking.
This conversation has suddenly taken a very surreal left turn.
Coming back to it, there's a bit where he's rolling around on the floor, right, and he's saying to her, get away. And it's like, she's not standing there biting her nails thinking, what do I do? Do I rescue him or do I run away? She's standing there like she's waiting for a fucking bus, right? I'm not joking. There's no emotion on her face or anything. She's just like... She's just stood there.
Yeah.
And it's like you're thinking, do something.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, scream or something, or, read a newspaper. Just do something. Just don't stand there looking like you could be doing something else, This is it. It's just, there's no passion there.
No.
It really kind of takes you out. And there's a few scenes like that where it's, the monster's coming. Oh, the monster's coming. What am I going to do? And it just takes you out at the moment because you get so annoyed with the actor, the way they're doing it. It's just like, this is spoiling it for me.
Wow.
And like I say, far too long. It really needed to be trimmed down. I mean, lose half an hour at least.
Yeah, which again, is it sounding like that to you, Jim? It's sounding like the director's cut to me.
It's sounding very like the director's cut to me, because the thing is, there isn't so much extra scenes in the can cut.
Yeah.
But it is, the scenes are all longer because it is a hurried edit he put together. It wasn't, that wasn't meant to be surface. It's a work print, basically.
Do you know what?
But it just got showed at Cannes, to drum up interest as a show reel, really.
Christ almighty, I'm surprised I didn't fall asleep, because I was fighting it at one point, and it wasn't this sort of like, I've had a hard day. It was just, my brain was just, look, let's just deal with the pain this way. Let's just shut down, okay? Let's just go to sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, far too long. It concentrated on the minutiae of what was going on between sort of like the start of the film and the end of it. It was like, oh, let's watch them scrubbing a toilet, and it was just stuff I didn't want to see. Just cut to the chase. Yeah, right. They've made up their room. Even if you have to come up with the words 3 weeks later or something like that, I don't know. Stick that in there.
Yeah.
Let's get the bikers in. Let's do that bit. Blah, blah, blah.
Because one of the things I always liked about it, I mean, again, we're talking without knowing what version you've seen, but I strongly suspect it's the can edit.
It probably could be, but
because I saw that in this version, and I really wish I hadn't. But the one thing that the film does, at least the version that I remember, the one that I was working in my mind before I suddenly saw the version I saw last night, the thing that they did, the pacing in the first sort of third, in the sort of theatrical or the unrated cut, shall we say, is quite fast. It's literally, and it's in fact so fast that it looks like Stephen, the flyboy, actually killed the operator. Killed the operator of who's looking after the helicopter.
No, he comes in and it's like, oh, you just see him examining the body in my version, the one I watched.
Yeah,
and he's like, operator's dead.
Yeah, post abandoned.
Yeah,
but the thing is, in the version, it sounds like I'm making excuses, but in the version which Jim talks about and that I saw over and over again as a kid, which I think is the unrated version, the scene when they're in the basement taking care of all the zombies who've been left in the tenement basement, it cross cuts so that when you see Roger pull the last bit of the gun and the music goes dun 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 dun, and Roger puts the gun straight to the screen, it goes bang. As he does that, it cuts to the guy who's the operator his head falls straight backwards, and the way it's kind of implied is that Stephen basically killed him to nick the helicopter.
Right.
Is that, am I reading that right, Jim? Do you remember that cut, or am I reading a completely different cut?
God,
I'm trying to remember now. It's
oh, cheers, Jim. I thought you had.
But if you consider the original unrated cut is 127 minutes, and the can cut is like 140, and there isn't actually, as far as I can remember, actually sort of extra scenes per se. It's just scenes are kind of there are longer and moodier bits in. But
that's what I'm saying. So so that's that scene with the nicking the helicopter.
I mean, there's a lot more in the can cut. That scene goes on a lot longer.
Yes.
And there's a big conversation. I still remember there's it's a while since I've watched it, because I don't. That's not my preferred cut of it. I don't, much prefer the Italian or the unrated. But I seem to remember there's a big conversation of kind of, well, we won't tell on you if you don't tell on us. You can nick that stuff, and we're going to nick this helicopter. Is that cool?
That's it.
Yeah, and there's a kind of, is that all right? Yeah, okay, yeah, let's go. Whereas in the unrated cut, it is more they turn up and they have this kind of, oh, you there? Right, fuck off. Yeah, let's go. We're off.
How long is the unrated cut?
The unrated cut is like 120 minutes, whereas the as Jim just said, the director's cut is 159. I mean, it's fucking long. It's really long, because I saw it last night. Yeah. But that scene, as Jim's just saying, before they nick the helicopter, they literally, you think there's a zombie floating about, and it turns out to be a copper, and then that copper's saying, well, you're nicking the helicopter, you're the chopper guy from the channel, and all this kind of thing. And there's this massive exposition dump, and then you cut to like two other coppers who are loading up a load of shit out of their van that they've nicked onto a boat.
Yeah.
And then
they're going, and the bloke goes, "We're going to the island," and he says,
island?
"What island?" He says,
Any island. Yeah, and there's this kind of sort of semi-tense conversation of like, we've got to sort this out before the National Guard turn up, and there's Peter and Roger in the car, slowly coming from a distance.
That's right. Yeah,
just like Lancelot from the Holy Grail. It's like every time they look, the car's back to where it started, and it's still coming down the road, and it's just like that. But that whole scene in the cut that I originally saw, which I'm going to call the unrated cut for the moment, basically has that bit of like, it implies that basically Stephen killed the operator. And then Roger and Peter just turn up, and they're like, "Okay, we're thieves and we're bad guys," and it makes Stephen have to face that reality that he's basically killed someone. Yeah,
they do sort of like drive up, and Stephen goes, "I hope that's thingy coming to us." His mate, the policeman.
Yeah. I hope that's Roger.
Yeah.
But that's the only bit that they do. That's the only bit. But the whole conversation with the police, who are also making a run, nicking a boat, is gone. It's completely gone.
Right.
And so there's lots of things like that. So there's a massive pacing thing, and at the beginning of that film, the pacing of getting out of the station, getting the helicopter, nicking the helicopter, taking over the tenement block, escaping with the tenement block, and doing a run and joining up with everyone else, and then fucking off, is like 20 minutes. Done. All in. So that when you land in the mall, the whole point is to draw it out and make it feel like, oh, well, you're actually, you think you're in a mall and it's all cool, but actually you've landed in a prison, essentially. You've trapped yourself. And then finally ends up with sort of Fran saying, what have we done to ourselves?
I saw that because then they had the bit where Knob Jockey switches on, has a TV playing.
Keeps refusing to turn the TV off.
Yeah. It was just like a spoilt fucking child. He really was all the way through it. It's like, he can't shoot for shit, right? And he still insists on going out and shooting for shit. If I had been fucking Thingy's character, Ken,
Peter.
If I'd been him, I just would have put a bullet through him. That's it. None of this being nice about it.
But then you wouldn't have been able to fly the helicopter.
Okay, you wait until he teaches the woman, and then you put a bullet in him. Because, this fucker shouldn't breed. That's it.
Yeah,
just, we don't want this stupidity infecting the rest of the human race, what's left of it, when we start rebuilding society. So, let's just get rid of him now.
Yeah, that's true. So this version didn't really do it for you.
No, and I really don't know what version I actually watched, but it was just too long. And it was, I don't know, there's just some stuff that just took me out of it. Some of the acting. I know kitsch acting is supposed to be, it's pretty cool and grindhouse and shit like that. But, when you can see someone actually mean it, and they're not doing it for, they're not in with the joke. They're not, I don't know. It's just...
Didn't do anything for you?
No, not at all.
Oh dear.
And I don't think some of the people could make up their minds what sort of zombies they wanted to be, because the way zombies acted sort of like varied from actor to actor. It was like there was no like, look, this is the zombie Bible. This is what we all do. Okay, this is how the zombies walk. This is how they kind of looked. Some of them. But let's not range from fucking being completely bored right up to, oh dear, I think someone's just shoved his thumb up my arse. Because that was it. It was just, some of them looked like they were constantly surprised by everything. Fucking hell, fire.
Yeah.
And it's like the bit where you've got, where is it? There, when the bikers were coming in, they were, all the zombies were politely stood to one side, lining the road. That was it. They weren't like shambling in front of the bikes or anything. They were stood there, sort of like waving at the bikers as they're walking.
Right.
Like, hello, Mr. Biker. I'll be your zombie for the evening. Oh dear. Oh dear. So yeah. I mean, there were one or two bits in it that still survived that I do like, and that's the bit where it's not Roger, it's the other copper, the small one. It's not Peter.
Peter's Ken Forey.
Yeah. So who's the other one?
Roger.
Roger. That's it. It is Roger. All right. Sorry, I thought Roger was.
No, Stephen's Flyboy.
Stephen. Right. Okay. It's the bit where Roger buys the farm, and basically Ken Forey's sort of like sat there,
just waiting for him,
and then you see the sheet slowly move, and then he's sat up in bed, And and then of course the shot.
Yeah, we're down to the line, folks.
Yeah. And it's that sort of last desperate attempt to be excited before he finally pops his clogs. When he's like, we did it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna try not to come back. Okay.
Yep. So
sorry. Look at your face. Looks like you couldn't care less about this film at all.
No, and this is like coming from me. I'm a big zombie fan, and it's kind of like, if this is it, if this is what it was all along, then I'm done.
Oh man,
I won't be watching this again.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not going to sit there and be completely but I don't care how much they go on fucking Ain't It Cool and every other fucking site that, oh, we've had one piece of music restored to it, let's go watch it all again. Fuck that noise. No, bollocks.
Wow.
Done.
Maybe we should call it "fuck that noise." That's the second time you used that phrase.
Exactly. I know I'll probably get I'm probably going to get stick for it, but I don't care. It's my honest opinion.
Is this the first time? Is this the first time the one of the presenters has ended up in a bunker of shunt?
Yeah, take me there. Give me some interesting films. I don't mind.
There's some nice sofas and some periodicals to read.
Yeah, exactly. I'll sit there.
Okay. Well, I mean,
is there a socket for me charger for me tablet?
Oh yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
That one.
No Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi.
No.
I don't mind. I've got plenty of games on the tablet. I want to sit there playing them.
Well, I mean, to be quite honest though, I kind of understand where you're coming from.
I can as well, having watched the extended cut.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember when the extended cut came out, and it was quite exciting. And the first time I watched it, I enjoyed it because I hadn't seen Dawn of the Dead in any sort of way, shape, or form for ages. Because this was pre-DVD releases. There'd only been a really all the gore hacked out video version kicking around. And BBC Two showed the can cut as part of some band or horror classic season. And it was like, oh wow, and it's even longer, brilliant. And I hadn't seen it for a long time, and that was cool. But when I got the Anchor Bay box set, and I not in the same week, but over a period of time, watched all the cuts and all the extras and the commentaries, I did think kind of, yeah, I can see why George doesn't like this cut and isn't happy terribly that it's actually out there. Yeah. Because it does kill the pace. And I've had that experience of watching going, this is boring. It just goes, goes on too long, and the edits are rough. And there's some even really bad musical edits and soundtrack edits in the extended cut.
Yeah.
I really do.
So I know I feel your pain, sir.
I really wanted to say yes. This was great. I really enjoyed my viewing experience.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, to be quite honest, like I say, I thought I had the old version that I had.
Yeah,
I had seen years and years ago, and I'd watched over and over again. So I was prepared for a kind of a nostalgic rewatch. But what I got was I didn't realise that the DVD I bought was the director's cut or the cut.
Have you got the DVD here? Because if you've got the same one that
it's upstairs at the moment.
Is it?
I'm not going to go wake up the kids to go and get it out of their room.
What's it got on your front cover?
It's completely black.
Yeah.
But it's got the mould up eye zombie, but it's photographed from the side in black and white.
Right, got you. No, Mum's not got that at all. I think it's got one of the original posters on it. So
but that's also on the original poster is sitting on the Blu-ray that was the director's cut.
So it must be the director's cut.
Because I saw that in Computer Exchange last week, and I thought, I might get that. But then I suddenly found out that I had a copy. So I thought, oh, well, I'll give that a go and I'll stick with that. I won't buy a Blu-ray version. And, yeah, the transfer was fucking awful to start with.
I don't think Blu-ray would help it at all.
No, I don't think so. But, but this version, I was kind of expecting sort of gore where suddenly there wasn't. And then there was gore when I wasn't expecting it. And it just felt like there was lots of really weird bits that were out of place. I didn't feel right, and some bits, like I say, like when they steal the helicopter, suddenly changed entirely. Suddenly Stephen went from, I'm so desperate, I'm killing the operator and nicking the helicopter, to he's just going to mooch around for 10 minutes, have a conversation with a couple of cops. People are going to turn up. He's going to go, well, right then, see you later. And then they're going to go, have you got any cigarettes? And he's like, no. And then light up a cigarette, and then they get in the helicopter and they fly away. And it's like...
he was such a bad shot that I think had he taken out that operator, he just would have shot himself in the foot. He was, point blank range.
I do think he was one white helmet away from a stormtrooper, to be honest. but this, I mean... Watching it this time, watching this director's cut, I have to say I do agree with you. I watched it and I was bored. But the problem was, I think I was bored because the film ended 20 minutes before it did in my head. No, because it did. It's just there were scenes that were just in there that just went on far, far too long, and and there was just sequences that I was thinking, no, we've done this, and musical cues that were just in the wrong place. There was the whole sequence of when the bikers come in. Like, there's a Mexican biker who tries out the blood test machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Explain, please.
Exactly.
The bit, just before he carks it, you are surrounded by zombies.
And then you get back in the chair and try it again. And it's like, but in the cut that I saw before, he was just in it. And then basically things had gone horribly wrong while he was sort of arsing about in the chair. And then all of a sudden he realises it's all gone fucking wrong. And
I seem to remember there's actually a big gap in the director's cut. You see him get in the chair, then it cuts away to other things, then it comes back to him.
Yeah. And then he's
why are you still there?
yeah, exactly. And they come back.
I didn't have that in my version.
Yeah, well, he gets in the chair, then someone comes along and says, why are you fucking about with that shit?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
he gets him to get out of the chair.
Yes, that's the one that was in mine.
Yeah, so you probably have seen the director's cut, because that wasn't in the version that I saw. The original version that we saw, or I'm presuming that we both saw, because we both swapped DVD, Betamaxes and VHSs at the time. The Mexican guy, when the whole thing kicks off, you see him get into the chair. No one tells him to get out of it. Yeah. And then the next time you see him, he's sort of like sitting there, and then all of a sudden he looks around and he's basically surrounded, and they basically eat him while he's in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you stupid sod, you didn't realise what was going on. You were just arsing about.
Yep.
And so there was lots of things like that which really threw me. And also the way that certain scenes that I remember were shot suddenly, because of the pacing, made it seem really weird. There's one scene, and I don't know how much of it you remember, Jim. You know when Stephen Flyboy just before he gets killed.
When he climbs onto the elevator roof.
Yeah, and he climbs onto the elevator roof. Well, just when he climbs onto the elevator roof and he climbs back down to get the radio, and then he climbs back up, there's a massive continuity error, because you see him climb up and he's facing you.
Yeah.
Right? So the wall's behind him, right? And then when the zombies come in and they bite him on the arse, basically, and pull him down. So basically, he's about 12 foot long, and halfway down, his hips have turned 180 degrees.
He's a very flexible man.
He is. So there was some weird shit going on there, because I suddenly thought, hang about, they're biting him on the backs of the legs, and he's being pulled down but looking at us. And it's like, how the fuck's that happened? So there was really weird shit going on. There was also an extended bit with him in the generator room, when that zombie's chasing him around and he's shooting at the bloody generator, like shooting at shadows, which made him look more of a prick than he already was.
Yeah.
So I had a really hard time with watching it this time, but I know why I did. I kind of want to go back and watch it again, but watch the version I like and see what happened. But the problem is, right now, I've as you had, I got hit with the version that just was so shit and so poorly done that I'm kind of a bit shell shocked. The one thing that did, so there's lots of, the one thing I did get out of this version, which I did appreciate, was there's a lot of more exposition dropped at the beginning in the newsroom scene. You know, when she wakes up and she's in the gallery and there's all this kind of stuff. You actually find out that it's 3 weeks now. The whole thing's been going on for 3 weeks. So the whole thing from Night of the Living Dead through to now, 3 weeks have passed.
Yeah.
Which I think was quite cool, because then it kind of gives you a bit more of a scope of like how this thing has been sort of trundling on slowly, and we've slowly dropped the ball and things have slowly fallen apart because we were all a bunch of fucking idiots until we couldn't take care of the problem, and then it's overrun. And that's the thing, that sort of stuff, because then that also, they go in to explain things like, that's why there's special groups of the National Guard who are there to take care of the dead. But the one thing this time round, because they add that extra exposition in there, suddenly I'm thinking, why are people getting really angry and shooting at the National Guard because the National Guard want to come in and clear out the dead that you're keeping in your house?
Because it's
See, that's suddenly become, that's where the sort of like director's cut starts to tip it too far the other way. You see, it starts to add so much exposition on one end that you're going, right, okay, so this is suddenly all making a lot more sense, but actually now it's making a lot more sense. The rest of this is starting to not make sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There was one bit that kind of, when you first meet it, to me it didn't make sense. It was like, fuck me, there's a random one-legged priest suddenly appeared.
Yeah.
You know, out of a basement.
We must stop the killing or lose the war. But that's a really good, powerful line. That kind of sets the whole thing up.
And I do like the way he handles his the crutch. That it's just like he's incorporated it as a second leg, literally. You know, it kind of glides along the floor.
Yeah.
So at first you realise what he's been doing. Of course, he's been down in the basement giving him the last rites and shit like this. But it was just kind of random priest just dropped in there.
No, I didn't mind. That didn't bother me too much because the whole thing of the tenement being like this enclosed sort of bunch of were they Portuguese or Puerto Ricans?
Puerto Ricans.
Puerto Ricans. And like I say, that whole thing seems made sense. But then when it suddenly is like, you suddenly realise that they're not just a SWAT team moving in, and they just happen to run across a bunch of people who have kept all the dead in that room in that building. Suddenly it's like, oh, so they're actually a trained squad to take care of the undead. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, then that doesn't make sense. Why is Willie going eggshit and shooting everyone? And why is it that they're punching open walls which have clearly got zombies behind? Because if that's the case, then you'd be like, oh, right. Okay. That's not really the best way to handle it, is it?
Nope.
I know what we'll do. We'll just smash down this temporary wall and let them all pour out into the middle of the building. It's like
splitting the forces between,
Exactly. So there was a lot of stuff that sort of made less sense because of the exposition that had been stuck on the front. Oh, sorry, I've just done my shoulder again. Ow. So it's a kind of weird one. It's I don't think it's damaged the film in my eyes because I think I understand the reasons why it's wrong, and I understand the reason why the film isn't as good as I remember it, because I've watched a version that isn't as good as I remember it, because it isn't the version I watched. I'll be interested to kind of watch the old unrated cut and see what that's like, or the Argento cut. I think is probably more close to the one I'm used to, because that's more goblin music and less DeWolf nicked from Monty Python music. And it's like, okay, right, fine. Any second, Lancelot's going to come steaming across and kill a historical curator. Yeah. But
it's like the Argento cut's currently like my favourite cut, because it's the one I've seen the least, because I hadn't seen it at all until I got the Anchor Bay box set. But the fact that I love Goblin, there's more Goblin music, and it's faster paced, and there are some different scenes, not many, but there's some scenes that aren't in either the extended can cut or the original unrated.
Really? Like
ones? There's some scenes he's put in that Romero had cut completely, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And the emphasis is much more on the action and the gore and the music.
There's more.
So I would say as well, it's kind of just a quick question. The scene in the basement where Peter's just executing all the bundled up undead.
Yeah.
Something I noticed watching the Anchor Bay version.
Yeah.
Is that I'd never seen before. Is when he's doing it, he's crying.
Yeah. Yeah. that's
Whereas other versions I've seen that aren't as good transfers, you lose that detail.
Yeah, that rather important piece of character development. But but the music as well in that scene. I mean, in the original version that I used to watch, it was kind of like the music's that old sort of dum 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 dum. Yeah, exactly. Whereas in this version, it's kind of like wow 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 wow. It's like
I'm just going to play a cat.
It is. It was like throwing a cat through a theremin. It was really weird. So that was a bit strange. Yeah. So the upshot of it was that it hasn't destroyed my love of the film version that I've grown up with. What it has done is told me that there is a much worse version out there, and calling something director's cut doesn't make it better. It just makes it longer. I still love I actually love the slower paced moments. I love the stuff when they finally seal off the mall, and realise that actually that's it. This is a gilded cage, and sort of collecting all the money. You never know, and all that kind of stuff. And again, shorter cut makes that suddenly feel makes Stephen less of an arsehole because they've only just got the whole place settled when the bikers come in. So he's like, yeah, we've done this, it's ours. And his reason for cracking and basically shooting them and starting a fight is because it's like they've just gone through all sorts of shit to make that safe. And then it's like, no, fuck off. But the director's cut, again, it just drags it out so much that by the time Steve, that you've got whole swathes of exposition with Franny just going, I don't want to be here. We should move on. We should move up to Canada and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's like, really? I didn't know that was their destination. Okay. And then they have a big long discussion about how long the fuel's going to take to get up there, and then it's like, oh, okay. So really, he's just quite happy with being in a mall for months rather than thinking clearly, and so that makes him even a bigger prick. So it's a really weird one because, like I say, I understand now why I love the film, but I also now understand why I don't ever want to see the director's cut ever again.
I'm very much with you on that. If that is what I saw, the director's cut,
I'm pretty sure that's what you saw.
Bollocks, that shit.
Yes. So, so as much as I'd like to turn around and go, yes, it's still a classic. I mean, because I tell you what, there's a lot of stuff in there that without it, as Jim said right at the opening, you wouldn't have any of these zombie tropes.
No, it's a very influential film. Nobody can deny that. I mean, whether it's that film or whether it's just George Romero's, first three movies or first two movies. Neither here nor there. It's, I mean, you've seen bits of this in other films. I mean, God's sake, it's like even down to Shaun of the Dead. You've got 4A's Electronics, which is where Shaun works.
And in fact, the guy who plays Roger, I think, turns up in a cameo. I think he does. I think he turns up as one of the news reporters on in the end.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, something else I noticed as well. There's the bit where the news report was saying about how to kill the actual zombies, and the exact line is said by the reporter on Sky News in Shaun of the Dead. So it's exactly the way it's said in that is said in Shaun of the Dead as well. About was it destroying the brain or dismembering the brain from the rest of the body?
Yeah.
Or severing the brain from the rest of the body. That's it. That line is exactly the same one as Shaun of the Dead. Yeah,
I mean that's the thing. I mean it's like what's it? That's the thing I love the most about this film, even in all versions, is the world building, and as Jim pointed out, the scope, because the stuff with the news reports just filling in the blanks and people trying to work their way through it and, pitching ideas like, let's feed them. They're a fucking workforce, and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's a really cool bit of world building, because you just turn around and you go, shit, they probably would think like that at some point. When they realise they're outnumbered, they've got to find another way to control it. And
there's also people like fucking off as well.
Yeah, and just upping sticks and fucking off.
The security guard, the manager going, you can't let them run, arrest them. And the security guard's like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here.
Yeah, yeah. But then that's
one of my favourite moments is the when they're flying over and they see the redneck hunting party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. That always cracks me up. Yeah. These two dirty bastards.
Yeah.
Missed him. Ah, shit. Got him.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of.
Oh, he's funny. Right, okay, let's do this. So, I think the world building, I think the influence, I think the film's influential. I think the world building is superbly done. I think some of the drama and some of the desperation and the atmosphere is amazing. And to this day, it still stands to me as like the perfect apocalypse movie. It's the movie that kind of sums it all up. If things are going to go wrong, they don't go with a flash. They don't go with a bang. They don't go with a virus making everyone just fall sick and die instantly. It kind of slowly trundles along with everyone going, yep, it's all fine, it's all fine, it's all fine, until things just reach breaking point and everyone goes, shit, why don't we do something about this?
Yep, and someone loses an eye.
Yeah, all fine until someone loses an eye. Let's all go to the Winchester until it blows over.
That's right.
We will be doing that film, by the way, very, very soon. So, yeah, unfortunately, I just think director's cut just sucks balls. It does. It's just so fucking slow.
The perfect apocalypse movie if you see the right cut.
Yes, which is kind of unfortunate. Because I do think that everyone's right cut is basically the first version they see.
Yeah, and I can't remember what version that was that I saw, but I think it was a lot more together than this.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. Well, shall we move on to some feedback?
Yeah, let's do so.
Yes, indeed.
I've sent you a few over, Jim. Yes, have a little look to see what we can find. So, I'll read one, then Darren, and then you, sir, if that's okay. Jim?
Yeah, I'm just looking for the emails.
Okay, fair enough. It's smooth as silk, this production. Right. So let's move on to the feedback. Okay, the first piece of feedback is from Jonathan Dibble.
Okay.
Who I don't think has fed back before. But if he may have done, but it's been a while, I think. Okay, and Jonathan writes, hi there, guys. This is my feedback for Dawn of the Dead. I chose the Argento cut as it's the one I have seen the least. To me, this is the best zombie apocalypse film ever and set out a scenario that's been copied for so many years by so many films. I can't deny that most of the acting is only average, with Ken Foree being only slightly better than the rest, and the bad blue face makeup for the zombies does let the film down. But as a whole, this film is a classic. The social commentary that is in this film is handled well and not rammed down your throat like in later movies. Plus, the gore in this film stands up very well, and it can still shock a modern viewer. I remember the scenes with Roger being attacked and coming out of that lift, giving me many childhood nightmares. One thing I would like to see was the original ending being left being bleak, with Peter killing himself in the storeroom and Francine chopping her own head off with the rotor blades of the helicopter just before it runs out of fuel. This would have been an ending right up there with Night of the Living Dead and The Mist, as well as bloody hell, life is shit ending. Cheers, John Dibble. Thank you very much for that, John. Okay, so Darren,
yes,
another first-time feedbacker.
Oh,
for you, and it is Jeff Harper.
Jeff Harper.
So let's hear what Jeff has to say as I hand it over to you. And don't forget that my iPad will lock itself after 45 seconds.
It certainly will. So I'll just keep moving my finger up and down the screen like this. Okay. So, Jeff Harper writes.
Jeff Harper writes.
Hello, Lee, Darren and Jim. Hello.
Hello.
This is one of the movies I watch at least once a year, and I've been doing that for the past 23 years. The first time I watched this was on VHS, my friends, and I rented. The tape broke just as Peter was getting into the helicopter. I ended up buying my own the next day just to find out the ending. My friends laughed when they found out all they'd missed were the credits. So Tuesday night, I got my VHS copy of Dawn and grabbed a 6-pack, which was probably a bad idea, as I had to work the next day. And my first review had to be scrapped. So it is Friday, and I've tossed Dawn on again. Sounds a bit dodgy. And I'll go slower on the beers.
Wake up at the crack of dawn.
Exactly. And I'll go slower on the beer.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. And I'll go slower on the beers until after I've written this. So this movie is and always will be a classic for me. I like all the characters except Fran. She started off strong and then became weak around the time they stopped to refuel. Fran, run! Shouts Flyboy. Fran stands there watching Flyboy fight for his life. Casually turns to see another zombie approach and then goes back to watching the fight. Maybe she just hoped he'd get bit. Yeah, I think I was hoping he'd get bit as well. Fucking twat. The only problem I have with Roger is that he apparently did a line of coke right before they went to put the trucks in front of the doors. I felt that this wasn't the same character that was in the raid on the apartment block.
Yeah.
Dated? Yes, I felt it was a little dated. Did I care about that? No. Zombies? Well, they look pretty blue on my copy, and you could see where more paint was needed on some of them. Do I care? No, it's from the 70s. Do I find this movie scary? No, but the idea and concept always creeps me out. When the zombie apocalypse happens, will I run for the mall? Fuck no. I'm getting the family out of the city and heading north to where I grew up. Low population, lots of space. Movie just ended, so I'm going to make sure my bug-out kit is ready, just in case. Jeff. P.S. I'm going to assume that right now, across the street, just standing there, is a group of teenagers and not zombies. Wonder why one of them is lying on the ground. What is that one holding? Looks like... Oh, shit.
Well, at least he got time to send off the feedback before they crashed through his window.
Cheers for that, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so, Jim, have you received the package?
No.
Shit. Okay.
Albatross.
Albatross. Okay, well, I'll
Should I get bloody wafers with it?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll while you're waiting, fucking iPads. I'll read out the next one, which I did send to you, which was from Mark Last.
Oh.
And Mark writes, "Evening, Lee, Jim, and they're coming to get you, Barnard." Yeah. So, Dawn of the Dead. I'll get straight to the point. I absolutely love this film. No zombie film since has successfully captured the futility and desperation of the protagonist's plight, with the possible exception of Romero's follow-up zombie flick, Day of the Dead, my personal favourite of Romero's zombie output, and I fully expect to be unceremoniously thrown straight into the bunker as shown for that admission. You know you don't need to be thrown in. We just open the door and just let you walk in.
I've actually got a lot of love for Day of the Dead.
Have you?
Yeah.
No,
Not the Ving
like
Rhames one,
as well.
but the original copy, the original.
But
there are some very nice things in it, especially with the soldier being pulled apart and his voice slowly getting higher and higher as his vocal cords stretch. That's lovely.
But I feel a Blade Runner 2 moment coming on. I might have to have a lie down. Someone run the Albatross music. The problem with Day of the Dead is that everyone's fucking mental.
Well, yeah, they're stuck in a fucking bunker. That's it. It's like,
I mean, properly not thinking clearly, doing something stupid. Mental.
Nobody said these were the top military sort of, specimens.
I don't know anyone who's stupid enough to get into a lift, go up in the lift, let the zombies in, then press the button to come down in the lift with the zombies willingly. Why did that happen? When you answer me that question...
Well, it's a bit like somebody climbing through the roof of a lift and leaving his legs dangling when the door could quite easily open and zombies come in and bite him on the arse.
Yeah, but that's because he's just a div. This
But
requires...
it's somebody we always wanted to get bitten.
Yeah, but this is somebody getting bitten, getting saved from being bitten because he had his arm chopped off. So he isn't infected.
That's his revenge on Rhodes. That's how I've always read it.
But
that's his last fuck you. We're all finished. I'm skip to the end. Let's let him in. I'm done.
Yeah,
and so are all of you.
If I remember rightly,
all.
I think that is what he does. That's it. The end for him. So he knows he's on his way out. So it's like, okay, Rhodes.
He isn't on his way out though. That's the thing.
He is. He's holding his arm when he's got the thing. He basically opens the gates, lets the zombies in, and goes down.
The infection has been stopped. The lady right at the beginning, when he gets bit, the first thing she does before they even finish biting him,
I can't remember what it is.
He chops his arm straight off so he doesn't get the infection. So yeah, he might have a thing for hating Rhodes, but he manages to line up all the zombies in a square dance on a helicopter pad and then lower the helicopter pad into the base.
I'm pretty sure there's a reason for that.
Anyway. Like
that's another podcast.
Come back in 2014 when we'll be covering Day of the Dead. Let's get so anyway. Just let yourself in, Mark. Right. So Mark continues. The special effects makeup have understandably dated, but there's something about practical effects that emphasise the horror of a zombie attack that CGI has never successfully replicated. Standout scenes for me include the panic and confusion in the television studio at the film's opening, which I did like, and the scenes in the mall where the protagonists slowly realise they're not surviving but merely existing. On a side note, a lot have been said about the subtext of the film and how it's a metaphor for the rampant consumerism of the 70s. This may be the case, but I'd like to think that Romero was simply thinking, wouldn't a shopping mall be a fucking great place to wait out a zombie apocalypse? After all, we all have our own zombie survival plans in place, or is it just me? No, I don't think it is, actually.
No. I often walk into a building and the first thing I think of whenever I look at the outside of a house or a building of any kind of description or walk into one is, how good would this be in a zombie apocalypse? Could I hold up here?
Well, here I can. This place is great. Every part of every window is double glazed.
Yeah.
So
right. That window there, mate, ain't gonna stop. Like, if they come through the fence at the back.
Well, that's the other thing. They've got to go through 5 fences to go through across other people's gardens to get to this fence. This garden's completely walled in.
You've got one garden.
Yeah.
Until the road there.
Yeah, with 2 walls.
Oh, it's a wooden fence though.
No, and it's up and it's raised.
Okay, raised. That's fine.
Yeah. So anyway, shut up. That's why. And I've got a loft.
And I've got a loft.
I've got a packet of Jaffa cakes, but that means fucking diddly during a fucking zombie
we got
apocalypse.
A loft with a retractable ladder. So you go up in the loft, pull up the retractable ladder, job. See them get out of that. If they even manage to get in through my particularly high security windows. Shut up.
The dishwasher will see them off.
Yeah, the fucking new customised dishwasher, nuclear fusion.
Booby trapped.
Yeah, dishwasher buddy 5000. He'll help me. He'll save me. Anyway, right. So Mark concludes. That's it from me. By the time you read this out, I'll be in New York City with my good lady her indoors. Hope you all had a fantastic time at the Blackdog shindig, and hope to make it to the next time we get together, and finally meet some of my fellow Blackdoggers. Tatty bye, Mark. Thank you very much for that, Mark. What?
No, I just had the washing machines work better with Calgon, or whatever was playing through my head. I'm sure we can make a zombie version of that.
Washing machines kill zombies with Calgon. Yeah, sorry. Right. Jim, have you received any emails?
No. Despite multiple pressing of the refresh.
Okay.
Have you received the package?
Have you received the package? Okay, I'm going to forward this again. There you go. There you go.
He's going to, at 3 o'clock in the morning, he's going to get suddenly a mother load of mail come through.
It's going to jimmoon@hypnagoria.com. That's good, yes? Jim_moon@hypnagoria.com.
Yeah, that is correct.
Cool. Just done a plug for your podcast, by the way. Your feedback. Jim_moon@hypnagoria.com.
You wait, 3 o'clock in the morning, that phone's just going to keep going boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom.
that went.
Nope, not coming through here.
Right. Well, that one went. It bloody went. It's bloody well gone. I'm going to forward that one as well. In fact, I'm going to do this one. hypnagoria@gmail.com. There you go.
Try the Gmail.
There you go. That one went. I'm glad you're all listening to this, ladies and gentlemen, 'cause I'm not editing this fucker. 2 hours and 22 minutes in. You can bloody well wait while I send these emails off. Anyway.
Blackdog behind the music.
Behind the set.
Hey!
Did that one turn up?
Yes, we got one.
How many did you get?
One. From Martin Thompson.
Go on, and you read that, and I'll carry on forwarding them.
Okie dokie. And Mr. Martin writes, "Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I assume by now you're all holed up inside the Blue Water Shopping Centre, wearing the very finest fur coats, until the zombie apocalypse blows over. And with that reference, I've probably lost most of the listeners and Jim. So I'll get down to Dawn of the Dead. Now, I fully expected to be a lone voice of dissent this week, as when I saw this film for the first time about 5 years ago, I didn't like it very much and found it rather dull. Watching the full thing through, I have a better appreciation of it. Sure, it's still slow and longer than I expected, but every scene I felt was needed as our heroes get used to living in the mall. It makes for a fine sequel to Night of the Living Dead and opens up the world a little more, especially by introducing the enjoyment of some people are getting out of killing the zombies. Zombies who, incidentally, look like the Blue Man Group fan club. But of course, I know we can't really bitch about the special effects in 1978, especially as the zombie movie was still in its infancy. Actually, Jim will know more about that than I do. I think I've been spoiled a little by The Walking Dead. The soundtrack is pretty unique too, and I didn't realise how much of it I knew from other things. All in all, I enjoyed the film, and I can see why it's so well regarded. But I doubt I'll be watching it again in a hurry. Cheers, Martin.
Well, thank you very much for that, Martin.
Cheers, fella.
Like the Blue Man Group.
And I can say something about the makeup. I mean, partly it does depend on what print you watch. They are bluer in some prints than others. In the Anchor Bay one, they are mostly more grey.
Yeah.
I've seen many other prints where they are a very bright blue.
I've actually...
particularly the Hare Krishna zombie.
I'm sure there was one that was green.
Yeah. There's also that fat guy in the sharp suit who's bright orange in one cutaway scene. Yeah, where he's clearly just turned up with a tan. And they just went, oh, fuck it, we just need more people at the door and you're wide enough not to warrant two people.
It's an only way is Essex zombie.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know that the blood is also very bright red, something that Savini has often moaned about and kind of is something he wished he could have done differently at the time.
Wasn't that a Romero request, though?
Well, partly, he did raise it with Romero. Romero said, well, no, we'll go with it because it gives it kind of an EC Comics look.
Yeah.
And I think also the thinking was if the blood is really that bright technicolor red, it does sort of preempt some of the censorship problems he was anticipating. Having been around this block before with Night of the Living Dead in black and white.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if you make it look like Orangina, you'll get away with a whole heap more.
Well, it is true. The shade of the blood can be a factor in censorship. I know Hammer had a similar thing. They always use they bought their blood from a company called Kensington Gore because it was so bright, vividly red.
Nice.
I believe, actually, a trivia point, the blood in Dawn of the Dead was actually a commercially available fake blood that was made by 3M.
Really?
There you go.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was later used on Post-its. I actually think they coloured some of their old floppy disks for the Amiga with that colour as well. You could see them from space.
You know, rubber stamps. Reading with those.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, thank you again, Martin. Thank you for that, Jim, for the trivia slides. That's
Indeed.
cool. And let's move on to the next piece of feedback, who is from
Phil Bellamy, who is, again, another first-time feedbacker.
Wow.
Okay, so...
All these first-time feedbackers who have to wait at least 2.5 hours to hear their feedback for the first time. Poor sods.
We is popping those cherries left, right and centre. So, yes, Phil writes, hello, I said dear Blackdog feedback there for a minute. Hello, Lee, Darren and Samoon. Long-time listener and my first feedback for the Blackdog. Anyway, getting into it. Dawn of the Dead. Everybody dead. That is not exterminatable. Get up and kill. The people it kills will get up and kill. Watching it back now, it sends shivers down my spine. I absolutely love this film. I love the way you are thrust straight into the action from the get-go. And even though it's a sequel, there's no backstory, no long drawn-out intro, just bang. Shit's going down, run for your life. I don't have much to add to the already very positive feedback I'm sure has been given already. So just to read off a few of my favourite moments. SWAT team member going apeshit and randomly blowing away people. Roger's slow and very well done death and transition to one of the living dead. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Peter picking off random bikers at the end. Also, Peter is a fucking badass all the way through this film. Of course he is.
Yeah. You never aim a gun at anyone, mister.
He knows Macumba.
Voodoo.
Yeah, it's definitely set the bar for all zombie films to come, and it's obviously where so many zombie films since have drawn their inspiration from. On a side note, the quote from the start was also quoted at the beginning of the Gorillaz music video, Clint Eastwood. Anyways, love the show, and as always, keep up the good work. Phil Bellamy.
Thank you very much for that, Phil.
And he's put, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Phil.
Yeah, by the way, I should just mention, because everyone's sort of saying that they think there should be lots of positive feedback, that me and Darren were obviously going, yes. But I will say that even with the shitty, boring, extra long director's cut, there was a lot of this film that I still liked. The bits that I remember that fit in the right order,
yeah,
I still loved. I still loved all the little montage, and they're walking around this thing, and I love the zombies themselves. I think they're well done. I especially like the fact they try and give them a bit of pathos and a little bit of comedy with like the baseball zombie and the kids, and there's that other kid that's kind of wandering around dragging the doll, and there's little bits in there that are really nicely kind of just adding a bit of extra creep, because you're kind of implying that there's something still left behind.
Well, there is that bit where what's her name? Is it Shelley?
Fran,
that's it. Yeah, she's inside that shop, and she's sat on one side. She's sat right up close to the glass doors, and then there's that one zombie that comes along and just sits on the floor and looks at her, and you see her kind of go, "Oh,
yeah," which has that fantastic, that whole, again, where the music went horribly wrong in the bloody director's cut, with that sort of dum 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 da da. You see everyone's fucking dead, and you can hear them all being picked off in the background while Fran's looking at that guy.
Yeah,
it's just like, it's just got some amazing moments. It's just a shame the director's cut bored the bollocks off me, really.
I do like the think logical always.
Yeah.
Logical. I like that whole segment as well. That bit, that interview they catch on TV.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And exactly, and then that's the thing, because the way that's done is that, and going back to what I was saying about the world building, the way that's done, it gives them a connection to the outside world. And when that finally goes off, that's it. The outside world's gone. That's the end of the world. Once TV goes off, and that's one of the coolest bits about it, I think, is just that once everything goes completely silent outside, that's when everyone realises that that mall is actually their prison, because they lose all connection. Mm-hmm. And that's really cool. But like I say, director's cut's still boring. But anyway, right, Jim, do you have any more feedback?
I do.
Yes,
I have one from Mr. Peter Hammond.
Aha! Don't you have to say it slowly so he doesn't crash his car again.
Yeah.
Every time you read his feedback out, he crashes his car.
That's true. Anyhow, Mr. Pete writes, "Hello, Lee, Darren and Jim."
Hello.
Hello. I have a horrible feeling that I'm going to need the keys to the bunker of Shun for this one. I do like a good zombie film. Well, that's not strictly true. I did like a good zombie film. However, market saturation, thanks in part to films like this, have dulled the threat and horror of the zombie apocalypse for me. That, and I have my zombie plan all sorted. Go to work, we have quad bikes, Land Rovers, spare fuel, and it's in the fens, so you can see them coming a mile off.
Nice.
Very good.
I do love The Walking Dead, though, and I'm getting a bit excited for the new season. First up, I found the film on the Tube of You and went for the 2-hour, 19-minute version.
That's the director's cut again, isn't it?
It is.
I'm pretty sure that's the one I watched.
Yep. And I kind of wish I hadn't, as I felt the pacing was far too slow. I also wish I hadn't watched it on my big telly through the Xbox, as it really showed up the bad transfer in picture quality. But even with the slow pacing, I didn't find the film engaging on any level, and I think that's the fault of the horror/zombie/torture porn that has been vomited at us since this was released. The violence and gore was surprisingly tame, and though the visual feel isn't right, the blood is too orangey, the guts too plasticine-y. Plus, when people are taken out by the hordes of undead, they don't actually seem all that too bothered by it and almost accept it, which is a problem for me.
Oh.
As a sign of the time, I think the most shocking moment is at the beginning when the mustachioed shotgunner utters the N-word. But worst of all for me was the fact that as I watched it, I was reminded of other films I'd rather be watching due to the soundtrack. Obviously, Shaun of the Dead has used a lot of the soundtrack, even on the DVD extras menu. But what did make me sit up was the music when the biker gang turn up. It was used in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
There you go.
So, overall, thumbs down from me. I didn't hate it, but I didn't enjoy it either. And it certainly didn't make me jump or scared. Sorry. And just to chuck a log on the dwindling fantasy is rubbish fire,
Nay.
I watched The Hobbit, An Unnecessary Journey at the weekend. Well, the first 15 minutes of it. Christ, that was dull.
Unnecessary
Cheers, lads.
journey.
Keep up the excellent podcasting and associated work. Pete Hammond.
Oh,
I'm going to refer to it as that from now on.
the unnecessary
Journey.
Thank you very much for that, Pete, and beautiful reading as always, Mr. Moon. Yes. Hopefully he hasn't crashed his car. And yeah, like I say, we kind of understand why you thought the pacing was slow, but that's still no excuse. Get in the bunker. Fucking bunker's going to be full tonight.
It certainly is.
You're going to have to put someone up against the door, put the chair up against the door, just keep the door shut. Right, okay. Next piece of feedback is from Mr. Ollie Peters of Six Claw
there
Paw.
he is.
And the Green Luchador from many of the photos of the Blackdog shindig. And Ollie writes, "Hey dudes, hope you're recovering from the shindig. Hope you're well, Jim. And Darren, yes, you complete me." I don't know what that means. Darren?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Oh, well, okay. I think I think maybe you two shared a special moment.
I think we probably
I
did.
think you had an alcohol-fueled special moment.
I think we had an alcohol. Well, not as many as you, from what I saw on the photographs.
Sky rockets in flight, doom doom, afternoon delight. Anyway, sorry. Ollie continues. So this week's film, Dawn of the Dead. Well, first off, let me check out 2 for 2 of the horror month. Oh, sorry, check me out. 2 for 2 of the horror month. Never seen this film before, and oh my god, I never thought I'd see anything worse than Evil Dead 2.
Did he like Evil Dead 1?
Bong. What?
Did he like the first Evil
I have
Dead?
no idea. I got a stinking suspicion he doesn't like any of it.
Christ almighty. How did he get through the front door of the pub? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. What, without one of us getting him?
Yeah. Like fucking tackling him to the knees, bringing him down.
The Bunker of Shun needs a whole new annex now.
I think it is. I think the Ollie Peters wing.
Yep.
Okay, so anyway, he said, I didn't think I'd see anything worse than Evil Dead, but this is terrible. This looks like someone filming a home video, really bad zombies, and what is with the boys from the Blue Oyster Bar, and them having a big pie fight with the zombies. Well, I definitely won't be watching this again. Cheers till next week, gents. Ollie the Green Luchador. Well, yeah, cheers for that, Ollie.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Short, sweet, to the point. Wrong, but it's all good. Oh, dear. Right, okay. Fucking hell. Right.
He's shocked and stunned.
I am. But I shouldn't be, but I am. I mean, it's Ollie after all. Right.
That's another fine mess you've got us into.
Oh. And right, well, moving on. I'll pass this over to you, Dal. You can read this one. This is Glenn Kimberly, I believe.
Okay.
There you go. So go on then. What does Glenn have to say?
Okay, he says, hello, Lee and Darren.
And Jim. Glenn's forgotten you, Jim.
Put it on there.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Okay, so he says, firstly, sorry I didn't get around to watching and feedbacking about Horror Express. Sounded like a film I would have liked. Damn my laziness. Okay, on to Dawn of the Dead. Don't know what I can really say about this movie, as it has always been one of my favourite horror films of all time, since I saw it at an age when I really shouldn't have been watching films like this. I just love the mixture of action, black comedy and gore. Having watched the original theatrical version again on the shiny Blu-ray release from Arrow Films, I have to say that it hasn't lost anything that I loved back in the day. I just love this film. It's easily the best of the series, although I do like Day of the Dead, thank you very much, quite a bit too. Thank you. It's a film I can keep going back to and enjoying every time. Looking forward to the rest of the horror month. Take care, guys. Glenn. Thank you very much for that, Glenn.
Thank you very much for that, Glenn. You're wrong about Day of the Dead, but yeah, keep on. Do keep feeding back. Anyway, so Jim, over to you, sir. And who have you got in your pile?
I've got Mr. John Campion.
And
who writes, hello, Jim, Lee and Darren.
Oh,
Sorry, no MP3 feedback this week. I'll try harder next film. Honest. Jim's right about this one being horror royalty, and I was looking forward to rewatching it. My cut is the one that runs 2 hours and 5 minutes. Not sure which one that is. I believe that'd be the original unrated cut.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, 127 minutes. Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Still enjoyable, but I wonder how long the mall will still seem relevant. Half of those people shambling out of there as habit as zombies would have been listlessly prodding keyboards and scanning Amazon nowadays. It's very true, actually. When this film was made, malls were a new thing.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that, because that's one of the lines. Jesus, what is that? It's one of those shopping mall, they're big indoor mall things. It's like, really? Oh, okay, that's quaint. But anyway, we'll carry on, Jim, sorry.
Yep. The zombies were also a bit poorer than I remember. Other than the guy who goes for Ken Foree at the helicopter fueling stop and the Stephen and Roger zombies, they seem to be mostly people with green and grey face paint. What the film hasn't lost, and what scared the bejesus out of me when I first watched it, is that sense of society falling apart. The cops run out of control in the opening part of the film. The hunters cull the zombies for fun. The motorcycle gang wrecks them all because they can. Even the protagonists seem to have given up on anything other than trying to live the good life while the world falls apart. The chaos is like the zombies. You can outrun it. You can fight it for a little bit. But they always catch up. A bit like Night of the Living Dead, it's hard to decouple this one from its reputation and legacy, but I still enjoy watching it. Slightly less than I think I'm going to usually, but its faults are forgivable, I think. John.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Campion. That's very good. Yeah, I like that. Blimey, that's film study stuff, that bit, isn't it? The chaos, like the zombies, you can outrun it and fight it for a while, but they always catch up. That's nice. You should stick that on the front of a book.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Good feedback. Well done, that man. Extra star for him. Well, thank you very much for that. Okay, so, Darren.
Yes.
Over to you for this one. This one is Mr. Jack P. Starro. Aha. And he has this to say.
Okay. Yes, he says. Right.
Oh.
Dear delicious Darren,
Right.
luscious Lee, and
Mellifluous.
Mellifluent.
Oh.
Mellifluent Master Moon. Guess what?
Okay.
I didn't watch Dawn of the Dead. Surprise! Ha-ha. No, really, it's because I'm saving my Romero cherry for a rainy day when I have a lot more bourbon, like yes, biscuits, like a lot more bourbon and Kleenex.
What? Kleenex?
Yeah.
What kind of zombie film is he watching?
Actually, I like the sound of bourbons and Kleenex, but there you go.
What?
Yeah, he's saying here when I have a lot more bourbon and Kleenex to help me get through it.
And a tube sock.
And a tube sock.
No?
And so he continues. I don't like to rush masterpieces, especially since I haven't seen Night of the Living Dead either, and I want to see that first.
Right.
So instead, I'm going to have to give you my feedback on Carrie.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Which I watched for the first time instead.
Congratulations. Moving on to the next feedback.
That's it. We'll save that for when we watch Carrie then.
No, go on, read it.
Okay. Well, it was pretty cool, but let's just say it suffered from a smidge from some rather extreme tonal shifts. At the risk of sounding like the alleged new writer for Loaded, let's just say I did not expect the first few minutes of this film to be wall-to-wall soapy tit-minge buffet. To be a wall-to-wall soapy tit-minge buffet. Oh, and the crazy fundy mother was as camp as, what was that again? Butlins? But yeah, it all comes down to SpaceX's pretty intense and amazing performance. As good as De Palma was, I have to give her credit for being so legit scary. And when the crazy eyes, legit scary with the crazy eyes that were entirely too creepy. Sorry, man, I'm losing it now.
I think he lost it already.
Yes, I have to give her chief credit for being so legit scary with them crazy eyes that I was entirely too creeped out to proffer even a balsa wood samo over the sight of a blood bekalked Ranga bird setting shit on fire, which would normally be some sort of primo squeaky hammock time for reals, yo.
Oranga is Australian slang for a redhead.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
So blood-soaked redheads do it for you, Jack. It's only because she's got crazy eyes that you didn't get a semi. What the fuck? Maybe he's captain inappropriate. Maybe he's having an attack. Maybe he's attacking himself.
But this shit, freaky, man. Enjoy the zombies, mates. Jack.
Wow. As tangential feedback goes, that's right up there.
Yeah.
Though it was worth it for Soapy Titminge. But
do you know what? I didn't watch the film this week either. I'm going to tell you about a new shower gel that I bought. There we go.
Yeah. Anyway, let me tell you about this new brand of tea bags I've been trying. What the fuck?
You know, as mustard goes, Grey Poupon is rather wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't watch it, but let me tell you about this episode of Scooby Doo that I did watch. Mystery Inc. It's fucking great.
You know, if you're looking for an Indian meal, the Taj Mahal in Dartford, well, you could do no worse than that place.
Anyway, sorry.
Only 200 meters from this cinema.
Exactly.
Sorry, you got to have the little flickering hair in the corner of the gate. There.
That's back at the Soapy Titminge, isn't it?
Soapy Titminge buffet.
There's the title right there. Soapy Titminge buffet. I don't think iTunes will let it through, but
you know, just when we get to the impression that Jack is an enlightened sort of, you know, individual, he comes out with something like that. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It just loses it all of a sudden.
One can write a 17,000 word thesis as a feedback for Superman Returns, and the other one can write Soapy Titminge and be quite happy with the response, even if it's nothing to do with the film we're reviewing. Well, yes, thanks, Jack. I think. There's one last piece of written feedback, but I did actually forward it to you first.
I have it here.
So, would you like to read it out?
Yes, this is from the Reverend Peter Organ.
Of the Orgcast on Geek Planet Online and iTunes. Go on, sorry, carry on, sir.
Indeedy. And he writes, "Hello, chaps. Only time for written feedback this time, I'm afraid. Dawn of the Dead is one of our favourite horror films. Probably only pipped to the post by Bubba Hotep. Both films have a great balance between horror and humour, and Dawn also throws in some decent satire on consumer culture. As settings go, the Mall is a masterstroke, and many a time we've hoped that the Blue Water would be similarly overrun. The film is slightly let down by some ropey acting performances, continuity problems. How many times does the sun set during the helicopter refueling scenes? And the odd colour palette with Smurf blue zombies and McKetchup red blood. There are plenty of other fantastic effects that more than make up for the makeup blues, and some amazingly gruesome scenes of limb chopping, though the most horrific scene is definitely Roger drinking from the pickle jar. He clearly wasn't well by that point. Brain gobbling fun. Peter and Anne-Marie."
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, cheers, fella.
Was it pickles? I thought it was apricots. Or peaches.
It has to be.
I don't know, but I was very sure he shouldn't be drinking it like that.
Well, no, it's not hygienic. But
No.
I doubt there was anyone going to be restocking the shelves anytime soon, so I don't think there was a problem.
Yeah, I doubt he's going to get done by health and safety somewhere.
But I know Games Master probably wouldn't approve of his approach to video games either.
Oh, no. Yeah, cheating playing the video games, yeah. That was just wrong. Oh, boy. I feel like we've been through something of a ringer with the old feedback this week. Fucking Bubba Hotep. Better than Dawn of the Dead. Jeez. Do you have any opinion on that one, Jim? I mean,
it's an unlikely pairing, but I must say I do really, really like Bubba Hotep.
I mean, I like it.
Elvis and JFK versus the Mummy. I mean, that's a genius pitch to make, isn't it?
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, it is a very good film. I won't deny that. But is it better than Dawn of the Dead? I mean, you got one on the shelf and the other. Which one do you go for, Jim?
Well, I think they're on different shelves. They're both classics of a kind.
It's a bit like...
Though, as yet, we haven't had a whole subgenre genre itself spawned of Elvis versus films.
Well, I don't
Which
know.
I think is a pity. You're slacking, Hollywood.
Actually, you know what? I think things like Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Killer, all
True.
Get some of that. Hansel and Gretel, Monster Hunters. You know, we had Elvis versus the Mummy. I think it's there. The connection's there. God Almighty, we are really going off of the rails on this one, aren't we?
Just a bit, yeah.
Right. Okay.
The signal box has been switched. The train is now going in the other direction.
Okay, let's have a look and see what MP3 feedback we've got. So the first piece of MP3 feedback we have is from Chris Johnson, who I believe is your co-compatriot on Witless for the Defence.
Yes, the Lordship Justice of Clown Court.
The Lord Clown Court. Well, that's the best way of describing it. So let's hear what Chris has to say about Dawn of the Dead.
Hello, Lee and Darren. How the devil are you? What did I think of Dawn of the Dead? I almost forgot what film I was watching then. And I thought it was great. It is a good film. I know that it hasn't aged that well, but it tells a good tale. And you've got to love the blue Hare Krishna. Right. See ya. Bye.
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 Yes, bye. Right, well, thank you very much for that, Chris. Yes. Blue Hare Krishna. Does everyone like that?
Yes.
Yes.
Porno Krishna.
Oh God! Well, that was Chris, and where can you do you have the actual address for Witless of the Defence, Jim?
It's on Jellycast, and it's a complicated address.
So it's on iTunes.
It's on iTunes, and
Okay, that's cool. Right, okay. Well, you can hear Chris and Jim and Pete 2.0, aka Elton, on Witless for the Defence. While Pete's off, is it cooking meth, drinking meth? I can't work out what they're trying to say on Shonky Lab at the moment.
I think he's injecting it straight into his eyeballs or something.
That's right.
You know, he has to be in Belgium to do it, or you know. There you go.
There you go.
It's a special kind of needle or something.
Indeed. And for those of you who are more astute of the hearing, you might have noticed that Darren now sounds like he's talking out of a tin can, rather than doing his dulcet tones. And that's,
Here am I floating in a tin can.
yeah, that's because he's now on Skype, and this is now 24 hours later since Chris started talking.
Previously on 24.
Yeah. So, yes, we had some technical issues, just pulling back the curtain. And so we're doing this all on Skype now, with just me on my own, sitting here alone with this soundboard.
And none of them were our fault either. None of the technical issues were down to anything we did.
No, it's quite a shocker, really.
It is, yes.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Chris. Thank you, Darren and Jim, for still being here. That's always handy.
I have it's Witless Defender, one word, .jellycast.com.
Ah, see?
There we go.
See, I wasn't really just stalling for time while Jim tried to find that address, honest. Right. Well, there you go.
There we go. Professional to the last.
Yes, smooth.
We only had
as
22
silk.
hours to find that.
Right, okay, so we're on to the last piece of feedback, which is from Tom Elliott. And Tom does the Twilight Zone podcast, whose address I don't have to hand right now. So I would obviously say go to iTunes, obviously. But do you know what it's called, Jim? What's the address?
Just give me one. just bust.
I'll tell you what. I'll put Tom on. And then
No,
one of
I've
us
got
will-
it now.
Oh,
Here we
right,
go.
okay, go on.
It's tznet.co.uk.
There you go. Brilliant. So you can, if you're into the Twilight Zone, the classic Twilight Zone, obviously, and you want to send in any feedback about any particular episodes, you'll do get in contact with Tom at that address. And do listen to his excellent Twilight Zone podcast. But anyway, enough about, bumping his podcast. Let's hear what he has to say about Dawn of the Dead.
Hello, Lee, Darren and Jim. I just thought I would send you some feedback on Dawn of the Dead. It was interesting hearing your thoughts on it last week, what you thought of it in the past, because it kind of mirrors my own. I discovered it quite late on. It wasn't something that I watched when I was a kid, actually. My first watch of it was on DVD, so it wasn't an old VHS tape like it probably was for you guys, or on TV or whatever. But it did, just hit me straight away. I just got a deep kind of love for it. That stayed with me ever since, to the point where, and again, this seems to be a common thing with people, I did get a bit oversaturated, I sought out all the different cuts and so on. And the Anchor Bay US edition on DVD is very good for that, because you get all 3 cuts of it. So I did reach a bit of a saturation point, so now I kind of limit myself to watching it once a year. I have seen the Dario Argento cut, which is probably my least favourite, because the thing that I think Dawn of the Dead does best is the slow kind of descent into the jubilation of finding that shopping mall, and they're all excited and great, we've got everything we need and so on, and that slow gradual decline into, well, actually, this is more of a prison than a paradise. So I think the Dario Argento cut kind of loses a bit of that, because it's a bit pacier, it's a bit snappier, it's more of a action movie, it's more of a romp, and Dawn of the Dead is a romp, and that's the kind of pleasure of it for me that Romero does so well. Early on, I'm right with them, and no matter how many times I watch it, I'm like, yeah, it's a romp. You get into that mall, you're killing zombies, you got everything you need, you go in this shop, you go in that shop, and it's brilliant. But then I also take that fall with them as well, and by the end of it, when it's all a bit slow and mind-numbing and everyone's going a bit out of their head because they're bored, that is, I'm along for that part of the ride as well. But every time I watch it, it's the same thing. I feel that excitement at the beginning, and then I kind of feel that boredom at the end of it. And it's not because I'm bored of the film, it's just Romero does it so well. I feel what they're going through. It's not my favourite of Romero's zombie movies. It probably was once, but I think that oversaturation might have played a part in it. These days I lean more towards Day of the Dead, because I think you need to work towards liking Day of the Dead. There's some hurdles to get over, whereas Dawn, you just initially love it. I think everyone does, because let's face it, and I think someone said this last week, you don't watch Dawn of the Dead for the zombies, because they're not that good. Put those zombies in any other zombie movie and everyone would be up in arms about it, what shit zombies they are. But in Dawn of the Dead, the framework for the whole thing is so strong that you kind of just let the zombies go. Tom Savini did the effects, but it wasn't Tom Savini at the height of his powers, where I think Day of the Dead is, because that's a masterpiece of effects as far as I'm concerned. And you put Day of the Dead effects in Dawn of the Dead and you would probably have the ultimate zombie movie. But anyway, so on this rewatch, I still love it. It's one of those films, I watch it about once a year, and sometimes it works for me and sometimes it works a bit less, but thankfully this time it worked for me. And going back to what I said earlier, my preferred cut is the extended cut. I know it might not be Romero's preferred cut, but it's the one where I really feel the passage of time, and that's what it's all about. It's that time spent in the mall, how it turns from paradise into a prison. But there's also one more thing as well about Dawn of the Dead that I will always remember fondly, and that is back in the old days when Matt and I used to do the Gentleman's Grindhouse. We did a special episode on all 3 of the good Romero zombie movies, and I agree with Lee. The last 2, my God, it's a shit cover goggles waiting to happen if you ever decided to do Survival of the Dead, because it is just diabolical. Yeah, so we did this special episode of the Gentleman's Grindhouse, and on it is the first time that we ever received audio feedback, and it's the first time I ever heard the voice of the man, the legend, Jim Moon. So for that, I will always hold Dawn of the Dead quite dear as well. Alright, have a good show, gents. Speak to you later.
And speak to you later too, sir. Thank you very much for your feedback. And again, if you want to hear more of Tom, you can look up old episodes of Gentleman's Grindhouse on Geek Planet Online and on iTunes. And the Twilight Zone podcast, which you can find on TZNet. Is that right, Jim?
.co.uk.
.co.uk. There you go. I'm rubbish with things. Thank God you're here, man. Right, okay, so Tom's feedback. Well, first off, obviously he's now jumped into the he's appeared to have moved into the Day of the Dead camp, which was causing me some consternation yesterday as people were slowly drifting over into that film. So obviously a rewatch of that's on the cards now. Survival of the Dead. Will we ever watch that? Have you seen that, Darren? Have you seen that, Jim? Survival of the Dead.
Seen it?
No.
I bloody own it.
Oh God.
I've never seen it. Did Diary of the Dead, but
it
or
makes
Land of the Dead. That was it, wasn't it? Or was it Diary of the Dead?
Diary.
We did?
No, it was Land of the Dead,
Which
then
was
Diary, then
What
Survival.
was the shaky cam one?
Diary of the Dead.
The shaky
That was
cam's
Diary.
Diary of the Dead.
Yeah, that's it. So we have done Diary of the Dead. That's the one with the weird bit at the end with the bloke dressed as a skeleton and
Shouting at the
fucking hell.
zombie, saying that's how you act like a zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell, that was awful. Yeah. Well, if you've not seen Survival of the Dead, I'll
Diary's a masterpiece in comparison to Survival.
Yeah, Survival of the Dead. It makes Dawn of the Dead. It makes Diary of the Dead look like fucking Shaft.
Wow.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
Is it like a sexy private dick who's a real big hit with all the chicks?
Shaft. No.
Can you dig it?
Yeah, Survival of the Dead. What were you going to say, Jim? Sorry, because I think we were all about to put
I
the boot in.
have a suspicion that Survival of the Dead is an elaborate joke. That's my only explanation I can come up with it. That we've always everyone's watched it and took it seriously, and it was just Romero going,
Yeah,
just having a laugh.
I
I think it's a black comedy, and we've all missed it. That's the only explanation I can come up for it.
do you know,
Well, excuse rather than explanation, perhaps.
I mean,
Dear me.
it's fucking awful. It really is a really bad film. Oh God! Now I'm sitting there remembering the fact how excited I was getting my Region 1 DVD of Land of the Dead. Oh, that was poor and all.
That was horrible.
Did you see that? Well,
I came into yours and we sat and watched
Oh,
it, and
God,
it was
yes,
like,
you
what
did,
the
didn't you?
fuck is this?
Yeah.
We were promised sort of like zombies actually evolving in this and learning how to use weapons. And you had one with a machine gun and he used it twice, I think it was, and that was it. And then it just turned into the usual, fucking tank rush at the end of it.
Yeah, Tank Rush. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. So going back to Tom's feedback, it seems like he actually prefers the extended cut, which is kind of an interesting thing.
Well, each their own, innit?
Well, I mean, I kind of.
Well, it's one of those. It's with the ordinary cut. That's the one you get most saturated with. Which is kind of like I lean towards the my current favourite cut is the Argento one because that's the least seen for me, and it's a different spin on it that's different though.
Yeah.
It's kind of when I first saw the extended cut, I did really like it.
Yeah.
But it's when I watched them together with the original unrated American cut and the Italian cut, it's kind of no, I don't like that one much anymore.
But do you think he has a point with the whole thing of like the extended cut actually does what we've been sort of complaining about for the last 3 hours, which is essentially it's boring, but that's the point. Do you think there's validity to that? I mean, obviously Tom does, but I mean, what do you guys think?
No. I mean, I can see that. I mean, it's kind of. I don't think the extended cut is a good place to start for someone who's never seen it before.
No,
or it's coming back to it after a long period of years. But for someone who knows the film inside out, it's
an interesting curio.
Well, it's like having serious Bob Dylan heads and Grateful Dead heads. They've got all the album versions, and they've got all these bootlegs that have longer extended jams of the old classics, and they end up preferring them over the studio classics.
Yeah, Dow.
Yes.
Are you eating the microphone?
No, I'm not. No, I just moved around to get the DVD of the one that I watched. I'm just trying to find out.
Because it just sounded like you stuffed the microphone into a sort of like bulldog's face.
No, I was just moving around the actual computer. But this version I've got here is 127 minutes long. What's that version?
Oh, blimey. I can't jump onto... Hold on.
Jim, do you know?
Does it say... It's labelled Director's Cut. It's the can cut.
It's not labelled anything, actually.
Hold on. Let's have a look and see. Well, the director's cut is 156 minutes.
Right. So it's not that.
So it's not that version. So switching over to IMDb, and 2 hours and 8 minutes. It's got listed as a runtime.
How long?
2 hours and 8 minutes.
Well, yeah, this is about it. And what's that for? Which one?
That's for the American theatrical release.
Right, that's obviously the one I've got then.
So you got the American theatrical.
I think so, yeah.
So that's not the unrated version.
No, this one's actually rated. That's rated 18.
That's the cut down, not seen on VHS during the Video Nasty era one. That's the what is that one? I guess it's the sort of milk toast one.
It must be. It's basically got loads of. There's a good few extras on the DVD itself. Like radio spots, interviews, audio commentaries, stuff like that. There's a 75-minute documentary on here called The Dead Will Walk. So, I don't know what fucking version of this is.
Well, I'll tell you what. Next time you pop round, bring it with you, and then I'll have a little look at it one day, and then we'll get to the bottom of it, because I'll suss it out within like 5 minutes, I think. Usually it's the opening, and you can tell how quickly it gets in and out.
Right.
But anyway, right, okay. Well, back to Tom's feedback. I mean, I think, if we had Day of the Dead zombies in Dawn of the Dead setting, do you think that would improve things, or is that just trying to have your cake and eat it?
I don't know.
Well,
I really don't know.
Well, you're still suffering from Clash of the Titans style shock at the moment, from the sound of it.
Yeah, just a bit.
I would go with Tom if you had the Savini at the peak of his game, Day of the Dead zombies in Dawn of the Dead. Yeah.
I think I'll agree with that.
Yeah, because the only reason I bring it up is because I think the zombies. I mean, for me, the zombies don't have, they don't have to be all rotten, and I mean, even though they do look like as Martin said, they look like the Blue Man Group, but for me, that's kind of like that's dead people. They don't turn into sort of rotten, sort of wall-eyed faces missing kind of thing. I was quite happy with the zombies in their sort of like standard intact form, because it was just like they were people, which was part of the script. That part of the reason why people were being protective about the zombies and sort of allowing it to fester in cities was because they look just like us. If they look like, eyes hanging out and parts of their heads fallen off and, jaws missing with their tongues sort of strapped to the forehead, it's like no one would sort of stand to defend it.
But then you've got to show them with some sort of, well, most of them with some sort of injury, because these that's like there's an awful lot of fresh corpses that were buried recently. Then it's so you do have to show a majority of them with some sort of injury.
Yeah,
as in bite mark or something, just to show that they actually this is how they became zombies in the first place. And a lot of them are too well dressed to be corpses just out of the ground.
Well, no, I mean, I always got the feeling with that the dead that were rising, they weren't ever rising from the graves. They were rising from mortuaries, from fresh injuries, from people who have only just died. I didn't ever get the feeling they just clambered out of a grave. I don't know, am I alone on that one, or because I always thought that was part of the thing.
It's people where they've dropped, they've got up again.
Mm.
So you have a few that are a bit manky. And some that, and actually, Night of the Living Dead, there's one with an autopsy scar wandering about.
That's
He's
right.
just got off with a slab. Whereas, like in Day of the Dead, that's months and months down the timeline, so they all are starting to look a lot worse.
Exactly.
Maybe it does make sense actually in this one that a lot of them are just a bit blue and grey.
Because it's only, as we said, I think yesterday, it was like the whole thing's only timeline from Night is only like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's not, that's understandable. You wouldn't have just like people just rotting then in 3 weeks.
No, you wouldn't. They might smell a bit, but
Yeah. Don't want to do smell-o-vision zombie movies.
No.
Really. Right. Okay. Well, thank you again for that, Tom. Yeah, I've clearly got to watch Day of the Dead again, haven't I? I've got to kind of get back in love with that film, because that.
Well, Tom's right. It is a film you have to work at to like, and it's a film I've enjoyed more and more over the years. I think it's a grower. In a very sick, cynical way.
I do like the opening of the film a lot, where they're actually going out and doing the recce's in the street, and then you just see it like the deserted city, and all of a sudden, wave upon wave of zombies come walking around the corner. I think that's what happens at the beginning, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, he starts shouting on the megaphone for any survivors, and all the zombies just start stirring. What? Fresh meat. Dinner.
And then there's a random crocodile, if I remember.
There is.
Yeah.
I always think he's like a stuffed alligator from a wizard's study.
I think, obviously, J.J. Abrams went back in time and did the sort of Lost thing. It's like, we had a polar bear in Lost on the island. He's had a whisper in Georgia Romero's ear and said, "You want a crocodile in there? That's what we want, because that'll really make a big difference." You knows it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I just figured that if zombies were as ravenous as they say, then I would have thought that poor old croc wouldn't have lasted very long.
I'm not sure. It might actually be coming out of the museum. I can't remember. It's a while since I've watched it. But it's sort of like, crocodile.
Yeah.
Is that a zombie crocodile?
Yeah.
Must be.
It's just that.
Surely.
Just such a random thing just to see standing. I think he's standing outside a bank, isn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah.
What's he doing? Cashing his check?
Yeah, he's trying to figure out where the nearest ATM is, because that one that he's standing by is broken. So,
Oh, well. So if I take anything away from this evening and last night, it's that my prejudice towards Day of the Dead is clearly needs to be revisited and taken care of, or outside and shot. But anyway, so there you go. Thank you very much for that, Tom, and thank you for everyone who's managed to make it through this podcast to this point, Jim and Darren included. So we'll wrap it up. Any last thoughts on Dawn of the Dead? Do you want to just anything that came to mind over the night? Anyone?
No, I think I've said all I'm going to say.
No? Okay. Jim?
I don't think we mentioned the classic Dawn of the Dead anecdote.
Go on.
Which is, as we said, they were filming overnight in the mall.
Yes.
One morning, shooting overran, and shoppers came into the mall. Now, what demographic is banging on the doors to get in shops at 9 in.m? That's right,
Zombies.
Pensioners.
Oh my
and
God.
so a horde of pensioners were all eagerly just got through the door, were ambling down, turned a corner, and came face to face with 30 blue-faced ghouls ambling in the other direction. They were rather worried they lost a few.
Cut to sounds of sirens coming from over the hill. The air ambulance flying in en masse with a cage for them. There's fucking 700 older people being dragged off. Oh, that's great. Darby and Joan Club runs into a zombie mass. There you go. That's it. That's what they should do. The Deers of the Dead. Old Deers of the Dead.
Deers of the Dead.
Yeah, old Deers of the Dead. Hello, darling.
Window lookers of the dead.
Well, for that you want Cockneys versus Zombies, which does have zombies besieging a pensioner's home.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, of course, with Richard Bryars and Bricktop.
Yep.
Excellent. Oh, God, yeah. Oh, that's Richard Bryars and his Zimmer frame going at about 1 mile an hour, isn't it, if I recall correctly?
He's catching up with you.
Hurry! Oh, dear. Oh, we'll have to do that one as well. Right. Okay, well, my only last thoughts were, because obviously I did watch the extended cut and I wasn't terribly impressed. But then when Tom mentions the whole fact that, perhaps the whole descent into that sort of boredom from such a quick start is part of it, I can understand that. I don't necessarily like it, but that makes some sense to me. I mean, but I certainly wouldn't watch the extended cut out of choice. I think I do want to go back and watch the old unrated or the Argento cut again, just to kind of sort of cleanse the palate and reaffirm my love for this film, because as we said last week, it's like you get oversaturated with it, and so it's hard to work out whether or not you're really liking it or you're just remembering bits of it that you just like. But there you go. So for the one of you who is still listening at 3 hours and 16 minutes, you could have watched the fucking Lord of the Rings movie by the time this podcast is finished. Right, let's move on to the next film. And the next film is quite a departure from Dawn of the Dead. And and maybe something of a shock for our overseas viewers, for any of you that have never experienced the high camp that is Carry On.
Just keep telling yourself it's British.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
It's British. It's British humour. It's British humour from the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're moving into sort of horror comedy realm now. And good luck for finding this film, by the way, because we ended up having to get it from HMV for about £4 on sale. So let's move on and say that the film next week is Carry On Screaming. Now, before we go, let's just have a little round table. What's everyone's old memories of Carry On Screaming? Jim?
All very, very fond. I mean, I saw this, I can't remember the first time I saw it. I mean, Carry On films, for people who don't know, they were a long-running series of comedy films. I think there's 26 in all.
Yep.
And they're a regular fixture on British TV. And so I grew up with the whole series, but, always one of my favourites was Carry On Screaming. Not just because it's horror comedy, but because I think it is actually just one of the better films in the series. Because the other classic to my mind is Carry On Cowboy, which both perfectly spoof the genres they're taking on.
Yeah.
But not in a shit spoof epic movie fashion, where they just lamely take someone else's script and put lots of crap gags in, but actually, really mess about with the conventions and really, just send up every cliche, in a very clever way. But at the same time, lots of smut and juvenile humour. I mean, it's one of the, if I see Carry On Screamings on the TV, I will end up watching it and end up laughing every time. I can't imagine that's going to change. I had a phase in my 20s where I became politically aware and did sort of turn against the Carry On films for a while and go, these are terribly un-PC, blah, blah, blah. And then I got over that, so...
Yeah. Anyone who's offended by the morality of the early 60s will probably be best to avoid this. If you're
having said that, I think actually this one isn't too full of that kind of thing. Not so much as like Carry On Girls.
Oh God, yeah.
Which is a red rag to a PC ball.
Yeah, or was it? Or carry on up the Khyber. That's another one. That's a great one for your your intercontinental.
I'm having a spot of tiffin.
Yeah.
Don't disturb me. You're having a spot of tiffin. That's right.
That's right, tiffin. Yeah, and did as much for international relations as Hiroshima, I think.
Yeah.
Carry on up the Khyber, but yeah. So I think Carry On Screaming is the best Hammer film horror film Hammer never made. I think. Because it really does. It is a good example of that whole thing that I was going on about with Spaceballs, about sort of spoofing and and pop culture references which just send things up and pretend to be a spoof. I think this knows its audience, knows its target, and does it so well that it's a perfect little Hammer horror film. But Hammer weren't involved, were they? Jim?
No, not at all. It was kind of that they made it because Hammer films were at their height at the time.
Yeah,
and it was kind of they were the two leading British exports at the time.
Yeah, that's true. Oh dear. Along with imperialism, stealing things, putting them in the museum. But yeah. Anyway, so Darren, what when was the last time you watched this?
I think it was a couple of years ago, and it is my favourite Carry On film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is my favourite Carry On film. I really like it. As you say about the whole thing of this is the best Hammer horror movie that Hammer never made. I don't know if I'd go as far to say that, but it definitely ranks up there. I mean, you take the humour out, it's got all the sort of the tropes of those classic sort of Hammer movies. Everything. It's even got things like even down to the bit with Charles Autry in the men's toilet. And it's sort of like,
the lavatory man.
Yeah, down the lavatory man. And it's that bit where they all leave and he's by himself. And then you don't see who comes in, but it's kind of that whole thing of, oh my God. And then it cuts and, they find him like, I think, folded in half into a bin or something. It's great, I think every single one of the cast is brilliant in this, and it's great to see Harry H. Corbett actually doing something that's not Steptoe, which is a great sort of. I mean, this is one of the tragic sides of Harry H. Corbett. He longed to do some serious stuff, but he was so tied in to the whole Steptoe and Son thing, he never got his chance, and I think that wore him down in the end. That sort of thing. So it's really great to see him getting out there and playing another role that's not, the son of Steptoe.
Yes.
Harold. That's it. Yeah, him.
Oh, yeah, that's our old man. Anyway,
exactly.
But so you're looking forward to watching this film then?
I'm looking forward very much to seeing it again. Yes, I mean, I love some of the. I mean, some the whole thing about Kenneth Williams. We're frying tonight. That kind of stuff. I love it.
Yeah,
it's great. It's a feel-good movie as far as I'm concerned. It's just so silly.
Yeah. Okay.
We're fucking thingies in it as well. John Pertwee.
Yes,
as the crazy scientist.
and as me and Jim were discussing just before we started recording, there's also Dave Prowse as one of the monsters.
Yes.
So there you go. So Cornish Darth Vader sort of impressions should be on standby for next week. Hello,
Oddbod.
Oh yeah, Oddbod. Yeah,
Oddbod Junior.
Yeah.
That whole thing with the finger in the electricity and sadness.
And you know what? I think the flat head that is on Oddbod, I think that was later to reoccur in Dawn of the Dead as that helicopter zombie, one who has his head lopped off.
Indeed.
But I mean, last time I see this film, I would say, blimey, I think it was. Wow, I was still living with my parents, so that's got to be at least 20 years ago, at least, possibly even more than that. When the ITV used to show all the sort of individual clips. They used to run clip shows in the evenings of the Carry On movies. We just like individual clips just strung together, and so I don't even think I saw the whole of Carry On Screaming. Blimey, that must have been before I even started secondary school. So that bloody hell, that must be like 1981. The last time I've seen it.
Christ, that is a while ago.
It must be, because I would have only ever seen any bits of Carry On Screaming, because I think Carry On Screaming got banned for a little while on telly. When they were all going through that whole video nasties business, because obviously Kenneth Williams getting boiled alive and shit, that was a bit hardcore for BBC Two BBC Two at 6 o'clock in the evening. So yeah, that would have been quite early and quite a long time ago. So I haven't seen it since around about, I think, very early 80s or very late 70s. So I'm kind of going to be interested to see how this one holds up, because I have a lot of fond memories for it. Especially, who was it who played the sort of vampirella?
Oh yes,
Fenella Fielding.
Fenella Fielding.
Smoking.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. She well, if it was back in the 80s, that would have been kind of a formative experience, I think, is the best way of putting it.
I think so. I think she's got the classic sort of vampirella look going on there. Yeah. With the sort of like the red velvet dress and everything like that. And the hair and the
Phil
thing
wrestling down the front of it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, two badly parked Volkswagens snuggling in a knapsack. I think next week we have to get a sound effect of a Swanee whistle. Just keep putting it over the top of everything.
If we ever when we make puns, yes, have the Swanee whistle coming.
So, there you go. Enough of this mad rambling. Let's draw this all to a close. So, there you go. There's our last thoughts on Carry On Screaming before we watch it for next week. So, if you manage to A, find it, B, watch it, and C, want to send some feedback in, then send it in to blackdog@geekplanetonline.com. Alternatively, you can put it all up on the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/The Blackdog Podcast. Or you can follow us on Twitter, The Blackdog Podcast, which is at Blackdog Podcast. Or you can follow me. I'm on Twitter at CartoonBeardy. Back on Twitter again. Mainly retweeting 3D tutorials, but what the hell? Follow me anyway. And over to you, Jim. Plug time. Go for it.
We plugged the podcast earlier. I'm on Twitter as Hypnagoria.
Mm-hmm.
You can catch my writings and various reviews I do on either my blog, which is hypnagoria.blogspot. blah, 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 or on the Geek Planet Online. And I have just released an audiobook, a reading of H.P. Lovecraft's The Haunter of the Dark.
Nice.
You can find it Hypnagoria at bandcamp.com. And I'm just been working on, I'm going to put up a free audiobook there as well.
Nice.
Which will be an M.R. James reading.
Nice.
Oh,
Excellent.
great.
That's good. Right then. And Darren, where can we find you? The pub?
Oh, yeah, the pub, bar, any bars.
Blue Oyster?
The fish and chip shop. The Yang's...
The Winchester.
Yang's Noodle Bar, just down the road from my house.
Oh, okay. I think that's enough.
Oh, round the back by the bins as well.
for £5 in the gobble.
And Darren Diamond can be found on wanted posters from Interpol and the Chuckle Hut at Dartford.
Yeah. Do you know
Plays on every Thursday.
Do you know I don't even know if the Chuckle Hut Dartford actually exists. But anyway. Right. Well, if you've managed to make it this far, congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back and then go lie in a darkened room. Otherwise, we'll see you all next week for Carry On Screaming. Until then, tatty bye.
Bye. Bye.